The last train of the night was almost empty when Aisha boarded it. She took a window seat, trying to warm her hands as the icy wind slipped through the cracks of the old carriage. As the train began to move, she noticed him, a man sitting alone at the far end of the compartment, head lowered, face hidden behind a cap. But when the train attendant passed by, Aisha quietly whispered, "Who is that man?" The attendant looked at the seat, blinked, and said, "Ma'am, no one is sitting there." Yet the man didn't stop staring at her reflection in the window, even though his actual seat behind her was completely empty. It was past midnight when Aisha boarded the Lahore-bound passenger train. She had missed her earlier one due to work, and now the platforms were deserted. The train groaned like an old animal waking up as it prepared to depart. Inside, the compartments were dim, cold, and filled with the faint smell of rust and diesel. She chose a seat in the middle, wanting to avoid the creepy silence near the ends. As she settled in, she noticed the man. He sat perfectly still, hands folded, face down. His clothes were old but clean, and something about him felt wrong. His seat was lit by a flickering tube light that made his shadow stretch unnaturally long. Aisha tried to ignore him, pulling her shawl closer. The train whistle screamed, and the journey began. 10 minutes later, the train attendant walked through the cabin to punch tickets. Aisha leaned slightly and asked quietly, "Excuse me, who is that man sitting there?" The attendant turned, glanced at the empty seat, and gave a confused smile. "Ma'am, that row is closed. No passengers are allowed there." Aisha's throat tightened. "No, he is there," she insisted. "I saw him." But the attendant shook his head. "That cabin was locked until we opened the train. No one sat there." He moved on, leaving her heart pounding. Aisha slowly looked back. The man was still sitting there. Still motionless. Still facing down. Still in the empty seat that no one could see except her. The train picked up speed, rattling through the darkness. Aisha tried to distract herself with her phone but kept glancing back. Suddenly, she heard footsteps outside her cabin, slow, heavy, and dragging. Thump! 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 She froze. The steps stopped right outside her sliding cabin door. The door rattled as if someone ran their fingers across it. Aisha held her breath, gripping her bag tightly. After a long moment, the sound faded. She gathered courage and peeked into the corridor. It was empty. But the curtain near the closed compartment swayed slightly, as if someone had just walked through. Her eyes darted to the man's seat. This time, he was gone. Aisha forced herself to remain seated, telling herself she was overthinking. The train lights flickered again. She looked at the dark reflective window beside her, the countryside rushing past like streaks of ink. And then she saw it. The man. Standing behind her reflection. Not sitting, standing. His head slowly lifted. She turned instantly. The aisle was empty. Her heart thudded in her chest as she whispered, "Please, just reach the next station." For a second, she thought it was her own mind scaring her. But then the window reflection changed again. She saw a hand resting on the top of her seat. The actual seat behind her was empty. But the reflection showed a hand. Long, pale, fingers slowly tightening. The train abruptly slowed as if losing power. Lights dimmed to a sickly yellow. The attendant rushed in, panic on his face. "Ma'am, come with me. Now." He led her toward the front of the train, avoiding the corridor where she had seen the man. "What's happening?" Aisha whispered. He looked around nervously before answering. "Carriage 7, the one you're sitting in, has a history." He continued, voice trembling. "Years ago, a man boarded this same late train. He murdered 3 passengers, all women, in that exact cabin row. CCTV caught him. But before police arrived, he jumped off the train and ran into the fields." Aisha felt her legs weaken. They never found his body. Some say he died. Some say he hid. Some say he kept boarding this train, looking for the next passenger. Aisha whispered, But why could I see him and no one else? The attendant swallowed hard. Because the ones he chooses always see him first. Before the attendant could say more, the train lights flickered violently. A loud thud came from behind them, like someone slamming a door. The corridor went pitch black. A cold wave rushed past her, making her breath mist. Aisha glanced at the window beside her. And saw him. Not behind this time, but beside her. His reflection sat calmly, staring straight ahead. She turned her head in slow motion. The seat was empty. But the smell of damp soil and iron filled the air. She felt something brush her hand, a fingertip, cold and sharp. The train screeched as it pulled into the next tiny station. Aisha bolted out, running onto the platform without looking back. She fell to her knees, gasping. People rushed around her, confused. The train left after a minute. But as it pulled away, she saw something through the last window, a shadowy figure sitting in her seat, staring at her. Later, railway CCTV showed only one passenger in that cabin the entire journey. Aisha. But in every reflection captured on the glass, a man was sitting beside her. Railway guard Hassan had worked night shifts for 10 years, but nothing rattled him, until the night he saw a woman in a red shawl board a moving freight train without making a sound. He thought it was a reckless passenger. Until he checked the CCTV footage. The woman didn't jump. She simply appeared, one frame empty, the next frame showing her standing on top of the carriage, staring directly into the camera with pitch-black eyes. And over the next 3 nights, she began following him home. It was close to 2 a.m., the dead hour of the night shift. Cold wind blew across the empty junction, carrying dust and the metallic smell of the tracks. Hassan stood on the platform checking log entries as a long freight train rumbled past at high speed. He almost ignored her at first. But something was off. A woman, wrapped in a flowing red shawl, stood dangerously close to the tracks. The wind should have blown the shawl wildly, but it didn't even move. It clung to her like wet cloth. Before he could shout at her to step back, she did something impossible. She took one single step. And her body blurred, vanishing from the platform and reappearing on top of the moving train, silent, stable, unmoving. Hassan's heart dropped. No jump. No sound. No physics. Just a sudden teleportation onto a train going 70 kilometers per hour. He grabbed his radio but froze when he saw her turn her head slowly toward him, even as the train sped away. Her black, empty eyes glowed faintly. Hassan rushed to the control room, demanding the CCTV replay. He fast-forwarded the footage. The platform was empty. 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 Then, a flicker. A distortion. The next frame showed the woman already on the train, her shawl trailing behind her like liquid red smoke. Hassan leaned closer. Her head snapped toward the camera as if she could see him watching. He jerked back. Zoom in, he ordered the operator. The eyes, the sockets, they were just dark hollows. No eyelids, no pupils. She was on the platform, Hassan insisted. But the operator shook his head. Sir, no human could jump like that. She wasn't on the platform in any frame. Hassan didn't sleep that day. Because he knew what he saw. Hassan returned for duty 2 nights later, the same shift, same timing. He told himself it was just stress, maybe his mind playing tricks. But the dogs at the station thought otherwise. There were 4 railway dogs, always calm, always friendly. Tonight, they were hiding under the benches, tails between their legs, heads lowered. When Hassan tried to approach them, they whimpered and stared at the tracks. 2 a.m. came. The exact same moment. And Hassan heard it. The tapping. Not from the platform. Not from the control room. But from under the tracks. Tap. 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 As if someone was knocking from beneath the steel rails. The freight train approached, headlights blazing through the darkness. And then he saw her. the red shawl emerging from the shadows between the carriages. She wasn't standing this time. She was crawling backward, her head twisted completely around, staring directly at him. Shaking, breathless, Hassan ran to the old maintenance shed where the oldest worker, Baba Yunus, sat sipping tea. "Baba, have you ever seen a woman in a red shawl here?" The old man froze. "What did she do?" Hassan told him everything, the jump, the eyes, the crawling. The old man closed his eyes. "You shouldn't have looked at her." "Who is she?" Baba Yunus lowered his voice. 15 years ago, a woman tried to board the same freight train. She slipped. The train dragged her for nearly 2 kilometers. When they found the body, he hesitated. They never found her head. Hassan felt chills spread across his spine. Some people say she still tries to board the train she missed that night. Others say she looks for the person who first notices her. Hassan whispered, "She looked at me." Baba Yunus placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. "Then don't look at the tracks tonight. Don't look anywhere near them." Hassan ended his shift early and walked home, his nerves shot. The night was still, too still. No dogs barking. No wind rustling. Just silence. Halfway home, he felt the sensation, that undeniable feeling, like someone walking right behind him. He didn't want to turn. He forced himself not to. But a glass storefront gave him a reflection. Behind him, far back but unmistakable, a red shawl. Hassan froze. His reflection trembled. The shawl moved closer. Not walking, sliding. Gliding. He ran. Every corner he turned, she turned. Every shadow he passed, her outline flickered in it. He reached home, slammed the door, locked every bolt. Silence. Then a faint sound outside the door. A dragging sound. Fabric sliding. As if someone was tracing the wood with a long piece of cloth. Hassan took the next night off. And the next. But the station master called, threatening suspension. So on the 4th night, shaking but determined, Hassan returned to his shift. 2 a.m. arrived. The freight train approached. And the platform lights flickered. The woman appeared, standing perfectly still at the far end of the tracks. Hassan backed away slowly. "I won't look at her. I won't." But she was suddenly closer. Then closer. Then right in front of him. Her shawl moved on its own, wrapping around her body like living skin. The sound of bones cracking echoed as her head twisted unnaturally toward him. Screams echoed across the empty station. When the train passed and the emergency lights came on, Hassan was gone. Not a drop of blood. Not a piece of clothing. Nothing. Except a single red shawl, lying across the tracks, still warm, as if someone had just taken it off moments ago. The old railway tunnel at kilometer 91 had been sealed for over 20 years. Locals said trains that entered it never came out the other side, derailed, lost, vanished without debris. But when the new railway system started getting strange signal pings from inside the sealed tunnel, a team of 3 maintenance workers was sent inside. Only one worker came out alive. And all he said, over and over, eyes shaking in terror: "It's not a tunnel, it's a mouth." The tunnel had been closed after a passenger train disappeared inside it in 1998. Not derailed, disappeared. The officials sealed it with steel plates, then built a bypass around it, letting the old line fade into weeds and silence. But last month, the new signal system picked up train motion readings inside the tunnel, the kind used to detect incoming locomotives. No train was anywhere near it. So, the authority sent 3 workers, Jamal, Rizwan, and Farouk, to investigate. Jamal drove the maintenance trolley up the abandoned track. The rails trembled under them like something alive. The sealed metal gate of the tunnel stood in front. But the steel wasn't sealed anymore. It was bent outward, like something from inside had pushed through. Inside, the tunnel swallowed them whole. Their flashlights flickered the moment they crossed the threshold. No echoes. No dripping water. No sound of their footsteps. It was a silence that felt heavy, smothering, as if the air had weight. "Can you smell that?" Rizwan whispered. "A metallic, iron smell." "Blood?" Farouk nervously tried to switch on his radio. Static. Then a faint whisper in the static. Not words, breathing. Jamal placed a hand on the tunnel wall. It felt warm. Too warm for stone. Like touching the inside of an animal. 20 minutes in, they found the first sign something was very wrong. A crushed train whistle half buried in the mud, twisted like it had been bitten. Further ahead, broken rail pieces were scattered as if ripped out of place. And then they found a train door. Just a door. No train. Half melted. Blackened. As if exposed to extreme heat or acid. "What happened here?" Farouk whispered. Jamal pointed ahead with shaking hands. A wall of debris, metal, and rotted wood formed a giant mound. Sticking out from the top was a large, rusted object. A train number plate. R701. The number of the passenger train that disappeared in 1998. "Where's the rest of it?" Rizwan whispered. The answer came seconds later. A deep, slow exhale rolled through the darkness. A sound that shook dust off the tunnel ceiling. Then, movement. Something enormous shifted, scraping across the rails. Not footsteps. A slithering, sliding, dragging motion. Jamal raised his flashlight, and the beam caught something fleshy. Not rock. Not metal. Something breathing. The wall ahead pulsed once, like lungs expanding. A massive shape began unfolding, peeling away from the darkness. It wasn't a tunnel wall. It was a creature. Something pale, long, skeletal. With ribs visible under stretched skin. And a maw that ran the entire width of the tunnel floor. Two glowing, lidless eyes opened, horizontal, like a serpent. Rizwan dropped the flashlight. What is that?" Jamal couldn't answer. Because the creature suddenly rose, its bones cracking loudly. It wasn't blocking the tunnel. It was the tunnel. The creature lunged. The tunnel wall stretched and contracted like a giant throat closing. Farouk screamed and ran. Jamal grabbed Rizwan and sprinted after him. Behind them, the creature dragged its massive body forward, ribs scraping the rails, its mouth snapping shut inches from Jamal's foot. Lights exploded into sparks as the monster smashed against the maintenance cables. The men ran desperately, stumbling over debris. Farouk tripped. Jamal turned to pull him up. But something long and skeletal wrapped around Farouk's leg and yanked him back into the darkness. His scream echoed for 1 second. Then silence. Rizwan looked back and saw the creature swallow Farouk whole. Jamal grabbed him. "Run!" The tunnel lights flickered red, like emergency signals from hell. The creature's body convulsed behind them, its bones bending in unnatural ways as it forced itself closer and closer. When they reached the entrance, Rizwan gasped in relief. They were almost out. Almost safe. Then the creature surged forward, grabbing Rizwan by the waist. Jamal screamed his name. Rizwan reached out, his fingers brushing Jamal's hand. Before he was pulled back into the endless throat of the tunnel. The creature roared, a sound like a train horn distorted by agony. Jamal stumbled out into the light. He collapsed outside the broken steel gate, gasping for air. His clothes were soaked in something thick and black. He crawled away from the tunnel as fast as he could. Behind him, the tunnel's entrance slowly closed. Not collapsed. Not sealed. Closed, like lips pressing together. Within minutes, rescue teams arrived. Jamal was alive, shaking violently, unable to stand. When they asked what happened, he whispered the same sentence again and again. "It's not a tunnel, it's a mouth, it eats everything that enters." Officials marked it as psychological trauma. They resealed the tunnel, rewelded the steel, reinforced it with concrete. But at 3:14 a.m., the exact time Jamal escaped, the seismic sensors near the tunnel recorded one final movement from deep inside. A long, slow vibration, like the purr of a giant creature settling back to sleep. And beneath it, a faint sound. A distant train horn screaming.